Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. As always, I'm your host, Daniel Haqiqatjou. And today we're going to talk about a number of issues, a number of very interesting developments, revelations, you could say. And it should be a very fun, interesting show, informative, hopefully. Mainly, we're going to focus on the trip right now that's going on with Ahmad SHARAA, or as I call him, Goilani, meeting in the White House with Donald Trump to discuss what? What are they discussing? Why is Goilani meeting with Trump? He's basically the first Syrian president to be meeting at the White House. And this is being covered by a lot of media. Al Jazeera is doing live coverage of this. What are they discussing? It's literally happening right now, so we don't know what is going to come of this meeting yet. Maybe by the end of the show, there will be news. But I have a good idea. I have a very good idea of what they are discussing and what is really happening with this meeting. Why is Goilani coming to the White House? And this morning, it was revealed that he's not only meeting with Trump, he's been meeting with different congressmen, such as Brian Mast or Joe Wilson. And these are hardcore Zionists that he is meeting with and taking these photos with. And it's quite humiliating. And what the thing that came out over the weekend as well that I'm going to show you is that Goilani is literally playing playing basketball with the head of U.S. Central Command, with Admiral Bradley Cooper and other U.S. military officials. Literally playing basketball, having a good time. And this was so humiliating. This was such an inappropriate display of, good times with your buddies, with U.S. military, that even the Goilani simps, many of them, not all, even the Goilani simps came out and tried to distance themselves by saying, "Oh, I disavow." I disavow. I'm fine with Goilani, meeting with Trump, meeting with Zionist congressmen. I'm fine with him, even meeting with Putin. No criticism there, no problem. But I draw the line at playing basketball. I draw the line at playing basketball. I have no problem with Goilani having a heart-to-heart with David Petraeus, former head of the CIA. I have no problem with Goilani being implicated in CIA PSYOP, Project Timber Sycamore. I have no problem with that. But I draw the line at basketball, at shooting hoops. That just goes too far. You're making it too obvious, Goilani. Please, boss. That's the level of idiocy from the Goilani simps, the few of them that are still remaining. So we're going to look at that and analyze that. And then later, the second half of the show, we're also going to look at our good friend, Uncle Retard, Adnan Rashid, who has been outed as a card-carrying Medkhali. Obviously, last week on a couple of our shows, we were pointing out how Adnan Rashid refuses to condemn or even criticize the UAE government for backing the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan committing a genocide, actively committing genocide against Sudanese Muslims in Western Sudan. He just refused. He straight out refuses to condemn, refuses to criticize. And we speculated, is this because of blackmail? Is this because of he has some kind of business interest in the UAE that's preventing him, a conflict of interest that's preventing him as a spokesperson for Islam, especially British Muslims, to take a stand and say this is unacceptable? It's not like Adnan Rashid is apolitical, like he doesn't comment on political matters. Most of his content at this point is talking about the Middle East and how Iran has this massive conspiracy to take over the entire Middle East and then the world, to subjugate all of the world's Muslims to Shiism and force every Muslim to do mut'ah. That's basically what Adnan Rashid's dawah is, this kind of analysis of the Middle East. But he just has a certain blind spot not criticizing the Gulf countries. Have we seen this pattern before? Have we seen this pattern of all out criticism of one country, Iran, and its rulers, literally making takfir of its rulers, but silence on the Gulf? Who does this remind you of? Does it remind you of Shamsi, Dollar Store Pitbull, Rabbi Ferris, Jake, Fareed? They all have this same pattern. They all have this same pattern. A lot of vitriolic criticism of Iran, takfiring Iranian rulers. And, there's criticism to be made about the Iranian government. And I've made that on this show and on Twitter and elsewhere for years. But they take it to the next level. They want to takfir. They want to say that Iran has killed 10 times more Muslims than Israel and the United States. This kind of hyperbolic exaggeration of the facts, but complete silence. Not even a squeak of criticism for what the UAE does, what Saudi does, what these Gulf regimes are doing to also Sunni Muslims. So this, and then, to put the cherry on top, they also criticize the Palestinian resistance. They also criticize the rulers of Palestine, which are the Palestinian resistance, Hamas. So what we were questioning, what is the deal here? And I've been calling Adnan Rashid a Wahhabi and even a Madkhali. I said he's part of this Madkhali network. As you know, Madkhalis are a category. They're a subgroup of Wahhabis. Wahhabis have several distinctions amongst themselves. They're all toxic, Wahhabi, Khawarij, but you have the Madkhalis, you have the Haddadis, you have the ISIS, Daeshi types. So I've been calling Adnan a Wahhabi after he endorsed the takfiri principles of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. But now it's been revealed he's actually not just a Wahhabi, he's a Madkhali Wahhabi, which is arguably the worst kind of Wahhabi. It's pretty close. It's a close race between all these different groups. But you can say that the Madkhalis are the most spineless. They're the most hypocritical. They're the most bootlicking scum. And that's what Adnan turns out to be, along with his friends Jake and Fareed, Rabbi Ferris, Shamsi, Dollar Store Pitbull, all of these clowns. They're all one clique. They're all one group. They work together. They coordinate together. And they want to dupe you. They want to, basically pull the wool over your eyes and make you think that, no, we just are concerned about Sunni Muslims. We just care about Aqidah and Tawheed. That's what we care about. We care about calling out shirk. Trust us, guys. Just trust me, bro. This kind of psyop that they've been pulling on you. And, part of that psyop is we have to attack Daniel. We have to discredit Daniel. We have to delegitimize Daniel because he's calling for actual pan-Islamic unity, actual resistance, actual a future where Muslims aren't under the boot of Israel. Imagine that. Imagine that. What is required for that? It requires a pan-Islamic unity, and that's the worst nightmare for the Gulf. These Gulf monarchies. It's the worst nightmare for the secularists. It's the worst nightmare for all of those who want to see Muslims be forever subjugated under the boot of not only Tel Aviv, but Washington, D.C. So, yeah, that's the PSYOP. We're going to cover these revelations, inshallah. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the bell, the notification bell, so that you know whenever I go live. And subscribe to our newsletter. The link for the newsletter is in the description below. And leave me some comments, participate in the chat, leave me a super chat. That really helps support the show. I'm doing daily shows now. It takes a lot of time and energy and resources to do a daily show. A lot of positive feedback. A lot of people have really enjoyed the daily shows, the daily analysis. So as long as you guys enjoy it, inshallah, I'll try my best to keep it up. And just some announcements about the show. Later this week, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Simon Godek. So some of you might have followed Dr. Simon, on his Twitter account. He has over 1 million Twitter followers on X. And he's a very outspoken critic of Israel, outspoken critic of the kind of status quo establishment, especially when it came to the COVID lockdowns. he has a lot of interesting things to say, a lot of interesting perspectives to share. So I'm going to be sitting down and talking to him later this week. It's going to be a good conversation. Inshallah, that'll be on the channel. I'm thinking probably Wednesday. And then later this week, inshallah, I'm going to be flying to Nashville, Tennessee, to debate Andrew Wilson, a popular Christian apologist. He's Orthodox Christian. And we're going to be debating, is Islam or Christianity better for society? It's going to be about a 2-hour debate. Very exciting, in Nashville at DebateCon, hosted by Modern Day Debate and Uncensored America. And you can get tickets for that if you're in Nashville or you want to travel to see me in person. You can go to Modern Day Debate channel, and the link for buying tickets is there. I'm going to be in Nashville for the weekend, inshallah. So come and see me. Come say hi, or assalamu alaikum, as the case may be. And we'll have a good time, inshallah. And eventually the debate will also be on the channel. So be on the lookout for that as well. So big things coming this week, bi'idhnillah. Okay, so let's get to Ahmad SHARAA, or Goilani. And, you know, it's just been a really bad week for the Goilani tards, the Goilani simps, the Free Syria Medkhalis. And I've been very clear from the beginning that, look, I'm happy that Bashar al-Assad is gone. You know, that is something to be happy about. But do we know whether Ahmad SHARAA, Goilani, is going to be better for Syria? Do we know that Syria is going to be better in the future because of ousting Bashar al-Assad or not? This is the question that I've been raising. And I've said that, look, we can't really make a determination. We have to see how things develop. But I just pointed out the logical fallacy from these Syria Medkhalis, the people who at that point, back in December of last year, were very enthusiastic about the Blessed Revolution. They were very excited. They were saying, this is amazing. We have ousted Bashar al-Assad, and you have the revolution has succeeded. We have a new leader, Sunni-based Sunni leader that's going to establish a Sunni leadership and political autonomy in the Middle East for the first time. That was the kind of talk that we were hearing from the supporters of this revolution. I just pointed out the logical fallacy. Just because Bashar al-Assad is bad, and he was a tyrant, and he has the blood of hundreds of thousands of Sunnis on his hands, just because he was bad does not mean that what replaces him is good. It does not imply that. It does not mean that. What replaces him could be actually worse, could actually be more disastrous. And we have to wait and see, because there's a track record in the Middle East. When there is a kind of coup that takes out the previous leader, the resulting situation that develops has often been, if not exclusively, worse than what was there prior. And this is the pattern that we see in Libya, in Egypt, in Tunisia. This is a recurring pattern since the Arab Spring, and arguably even before that. So let's exercise some caution, especially given the fact that the biggest Zionists are praising the revolutionary leader, Ahmad SHARAA. They're praising him, and they're giving him these glowing coverage on CNN, on Fox News, in the New York Times, in Washington Post. All of the Zionist outlets are saying, yeah, he has a colored past. He has a checkered past. He was literally working with ISIS. He was literally beheading people. And he was on our most wanted list, most wanted terrorist, with a $10 million bounty on his head. But he's turned a new leaf. And we need to give him a chance. He's all about diversity now. So that's these are huge red flags. I'm pointing to all of this, and I get slammed. I get attacked. I get called an Iranian agent, an Iranian medkhali, a spy for Iran, an Assadist. Like, how could you have any doubts in our glorious leader? our Sunni leader, Ahmed SHARAA, he's going to take us directly to Jerusalem. He's going to save the Palestinians single-handedly. He's going to save the Palestinians and reset the Muslim world back to the time of the Umayyads. It's going to be Omar Abdul Aziz all over again. We're going to have the righteous caliph all over again. This is I'm not even exaggerating. This is what they were saying, despite all of the red flags. So either those people were part of the PSYOP, because as we'll see the history, Goilani has revealed again and again and again that he is working for the CIA, working for Washington, D.C. And even if you doubt that he was working for the CIA, that the whole thing, that he's literally an agent, even if you doubt that, you have to seriously question the decisions that he's making. And literally selling the country, literally selling Syria to Israel and Washington, D.C. Like, all of the facts are pointing to that. So I was attacked, and now we see the results. Now we see things are slowly coming into view. And a lot of the people who were celebrating the Blessed Revolution, they're quiet now. They're not really saying anything. They're not even covering what's going on with the country anymore, as if Syria doesn't exist anymore. So this is something that is shocking. Actually, it's quite shocking, the turnaround, the about face in such a short amount of time. And people are asking, well, Daniel, still, despite all that's taking place, this is still better than Bashar al-Assad. Okay, maybe, but you don't know where this is headed. You don't know what the future is going to hold for Syria. Because if you think it's bad now, indications are that it's going to get a lot worse. Things are going to get a lot worse. And I'm going to explain this to you. Why we can predict this. So let me just show you what caused a firestorm over the weekend. Let me just fix this. Okay, so here is Goilani playing basketball. This is not the first time we've seen him shoot some hoops. But he's doing it with Central Command Commander Admiral Bradley Cooper. And this is not the first time Admiral Cooper has been in Syria. We covered this when it happened earlier this year, back in September. This is Cooper and his wife posing with Goilani and his wife. And Cooper has a long history working in Iraq and Afghanistan, contributing to the mass killing of our Muslim brothers and sisters in those two countries. And in June of this year, Admiral Cooper says that the U.S. must have a permanent military presence in Syria. So obviously there is currently a military presence in Syria. They're mostly in the east, northeast of the country, and they're mostly with the SDF, the military units there. And Bradley Cooper says that we have to maintain our presence. We have to maintain our presence. We shouldn't take out our troops, even though presumably now you have Goilani there. Goilani is supposed to be the leader of a sovereign country with its own military. Why can't Goilani maintain security? Why can't the U.S. back Goilani in order to maintain security of the country? Admiral Cooper says, no, we have to have our own military presence permanently within Syria. And so then he's been meeting regularly, coming to Damascus, meeting with Goilani, and then they were playing some basketball. This is footage that the Syrian government is putting out, is like feeding to their journals, their media sources. So they're putting out this video. It's a good time. It's supposed to be lighthearted. Laughing. Yeah, so I don't know what's like more offensive. The fact that they're playing basketball in like a tie and slacks and a button-down shirt. Like, how can you play basketball? And and look at this form. Like, this is terrible. This is like, why can't you play a sport that you are more familiar with? Like, play some football, like some soccer. Why are you shooting hoops with this? So this is really disgusting in many ways. Look at this. Is Shaybani, like the foreign minister. Like, what are you doing? Like, what kind of shot? This is a free throw. This is how you shoot a free throw. Like, you're trying too hard, bro. Did you call glass on that? Banking in a free throw. So this created a lot of fallout. Here's Cooper himself with when he's not droning Muslims, he's shooting threes. He's doing Steph Curry impression on the court. Admiral Cooper for three. Oh, and you know that they were playing for probably at least half an hour, and there's only like footage for 3 shots, 3 made shots in this whole outing. Yeah, so this is humiliating. And I was pointing out that not even like when you look at other dictators, like tyrants, Arab tyrants in the Middle East, they have at least the sense, they understand the optics of not like playing footsies with US Central Command. Like, not having like a this fun time session with US Central. At least they have the sense not to engage in those kinds of stunts because of the optics of that. But apparently Goilani either doesn't have that sense, the people around him don't have that sense, or he doesn't care. He doesn't care, or they're forcing him. This is like a humiliation ritual. Like, we're gonna send our most bloodthirsty generals and admirals to come, and you're gonna smile, you're gonna have a good time. Like, this is a scandal for the country of Syria. How do you think Afghanistan feels about this? How do you think the people of Iraq feel about this? Like, these are the butchers of Iraq and Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is relevant because you had a lot of these Afghan Talibros on X, for example, or social media. They were so happy about the Syrian revolution. They were celebrating. They were saying, "Oh, Ahmed SHARAA is our guy. He's our guy." These revolution HTS is actually an offshoot of the Taliban. Like, actually, we're together. We ride deep. The Taliban and HTS, like, that's the kind of rhetoric that they were saying in December, and since December, January, February, they're quiet now. But a lot of them were attacking me as well. They were saying that Daniel doesn't know what he's talking about. Daniel's an Esadist. Like, now they're quiet. Now they're quiet when Goilani is literally playing ball with U.S. Central Command and Admiral Bradley Cooper. So what else? What else happened? This is what was posted this morning. Goilani posing with rabid Zionist and former IDF soldier, U.S. Congressman Brian Mast. So Brian Mast, you can see he has these stumps, like these plastic legs, because his legs were blown off in Afghanistan. He was literally a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan, killing Muslims. And he also volunteered for the IDF. That's how much he loves Israel. He volunteered for the IDF. And he has said that Israel is the greatest nation on earth. He wore a IDF uniform. You see this in this picture on the left. He's wearing an IDF uniform to Congress. So imagine that. Like, imagine, this is what we call dual loyalty. This is what we call being an agent of a foreign nation. You're a congressman, but you're wearing the uniform of a foreign nation. That's how hardcore of a Zionist this guy is. And Goilani is meeting with him. He's meeting, and you see there's a woman there and a man there. The Jasmine and Tariq Naimu. I don't know how to pronounce their name, but there are these lobbyists, these Arab lobbyists, who are pro-Abraham Accords, pro-Israel, pro-Zionism, and they're facilitating these meetings. They're facilitating Goilani to come and meet all of these Zionists, take photo ops with them. Why is that? Like, what is the purpose of this? Why is Goilani having to come and sit with these congressmen, invite them in Damascus, sit with U.S. Central Command, play basketball with U.S. Central Command? This is the question. What is actually going on? And this was also Joe Wilson, another congressman, posted this just less than an hour ago. Grateful to meet with President SHARAA. A free, united, prosperous Syria is the biggest opportunity since the end of the Cold War. We must give Syria a chance and achieve a complete and total repeal of Caesar. So here's Goilani with Joe Wilson. Joe Wilson, another hardcore Zionist, a hardcore enemy of Muslims. And, he views Syria as an opportunity to repeal Caesar. So Caesar refers to the Caesar Act, which put sanctions on Syria. And these are the sanctions that are preventing investment, mainly from the Gulf, mainly from UAE and Saudi, into Syria to rebuild Syria's infrastructure. So these are very damaging sanctions that were put on Syria back in 2018 because of Assad's human rights abuses and atrocities. These sanctions, the Caesar Act, was put in place to put sanctions on Syria and penalize anyone who is going to do business with Syria. And now they're trying to repeal this. So Donald Trump has already issued an executive order to repeal or to lessen the impact of the Caesar Act as sanctions relief, but President Trump can't fully repeal it. It has to go through Congress because it's actually it was passed through congressional legislation. It's Congress that has to repeal the Caesar Act. So this is why Goilani is meeting with Brian Mast. He's meeting with Joe Wilson, these Zionists, because Brian Mast is chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He has a very critical role in getting Republicans to vote to repeal the Caesar Act, to fully remove these sanctions and open up investment in Syria and infrastructure projects in Syria to turn the country around. This is what Goilani is involved with. And you saw him posing with Brian Mast. And then this is what that woman who was standing next to him was saying about this meeting of SHARAA with Trump, with the congressman. And this was reported in Jewish Insider, a very extremely obviously pro-Israel source. So this Namu spoke to Jewish Insider on Friday to preview what she hopes the Syrian leader will discuss with Trump, with normalization with Israel high on the list. We want regional stability. Israel's a neighbor. They're a friend of America. We want them to be friends of Syria. We want to normalize relations, said Namu, who was driving to the airport bound for Washington to be there for SHARAA's visit. She also expressed hope for a U.S. security presence in Syria. Quote, I believe they're moving in the right direction of getting that security agreement in place. From what I've heard, they're in discussions of having a U.S. airbase in Damascus to help with those security discussions between Syria and Israel. So I really do see the steps moving in the right direction. So this is what she's saying. This is not like some nobody. She has a long record of lobbying within Washington and pushing for the Abraham Accords, for example. And here she is, like, she's not a nobody. She's standing right next to SHARAA with Goilani and Brian Mast, head of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And that's her husband on the right. Some people are saying, oh, that's Shaybani. No, that's not Shaybani. That is Tariq Namu. Yeah, so this is what the whole meeting is about. The whole meeting with Trump is how are we going to make this deal happen? And people don't understand. Like, you have this Caesar Act, these sanctions in place, and you have Israel who is lobbying to keep the sanctions in place. Israel is lobbying to keep these sanctions in place. Why is that? And this is the dynamic that I've explained multiple times. The way that Syria is being gamed, is being conned by the US and Israel. It's a good cop, bad cop routine. US is the good cop. US is the good cop that is going to pretend to be Israel, to be Syria's friend, to be Goilani's friend. We want the country to prosper. We see this as a great opportunity. We're going to bring peace. We're going to see prosperity within Damascus, within Syria. We want the country to be united. We don't want civil war. This is what the US is promising as the good cop. The bad cop is Tel Aviv, is Netanyahu, who is conducting literally airstrikes on Syria, has been since December, literally has been trying to destabilize Syria, conducting raids within southern Syria, going to villages, setting up checkpoints, occupying and taking more and more territory in southern Syria. So this is a good cop, bad cop routine. The bad cop is supposed to put increasingly more pressure on Syria so that Syria compromises more and more and gives a better and better deal to the United States. And the United States, you shouldn't distinguish. The US and Israel are one. They're one entity for all intents and purposes. All of these congressmen serve Israel more than they serve the United States. Donald Trump serves Israel more than he serves the United States. So all of this bowing, getting on your knees for these congressmen, for Donald Trump, that's really getting on your knees for Benjamin Netanyahu. And ultimately, that is what is going on. SHARAA is in Washington, D.C. to beg for these sanctions to be removed. But he has no leverage. And that's the key point here. Syria has no leverage. And because they've signaled and they've demonstrated how they're going to be good little puppies, how they're going to do whatever the U.S. wants, and they're going to literally play ball and humiliate themselves for that purpose, they have no leverage. They have no ability to push back against Washington, D.C., or to push back against Israel. And for that reason, Israel is going to get everything that it wants. Israel is going to get everything that it wants out of Syria. There is nothing that Goilani can do at this point to pressure Israel in any way whatsoever. And it's because of the decisions that Goilani has made. Goilani has destroyed any possible leverage that he had to negotiate for the removal of sanctions. Goilani could have used, for example, Syria had, from the Assad era, had a stockpile of chemical weapons. They had a stockpile of chemical weapons. Those could have been leveraged in some way to get these sanctions removed, or to bargain for something else that would be in the interest of Syria's future. What did Sheibani and Goilani do? They immediately said that we're going to give up our chemical weapons stockpile, and all of those chemical weapons are gone. They were gone by June of this past year, or July of this past year. So that was one source of leverage. The other source of leverage was to say that, hey, look, we are not going to cooperate in terms of policing our country to eliminate any potential threat to Israel. You know, we have Palestinians who are in Syria. We have Hamas and Palestinian resistance have offices in Syria. And we're not going to cooperate unless you start removing sanctions, for example. Like, that could be another point of leverage that he could have used. But no, Goilani said from the beginning that there can be no threat to Israel from Syrian territory. And that includes Iran, that includes Hezbollah, that includes Hamas, that includes any kind of Palestinian resistance. He gave that security guarantee to the US and to Israel. So that was also major leverage that he handed over there. But the most leverage that he could have had, that he could have exercised, is if he, instead of going and begging to the United States and Israel, he could have gone the other way. He could have gone to Russia. He could have gone to Iran. He could have boxed out, another basketball reference. He could have boxed out the US and Israel and said, we're going to continue forward with Putin and Tehran. That was another form of leverage that he could have exercised. Then Washington would have to give up more, would have to do much more in order to secure any kind of cooperation, security or otherwise, with Syria. He didn't do that. He immediately said that, we can't have any relation with Iran. And, we view Iran as the bigger threat, the regional threat. You had Syrian officials, including Goilani himself, who said that we have shared enemies with Israel, referring to Iran. So immediately, any kind of leverage that Syria had or could have had, Goilani just gave it all up. So now he has nothing. He has nothing to bargain with. And you can look at these congressmen like Joe Wilson or Brian Mass. You can look at Trump, and they're just salivating, thinking about Syria. They're calling Syria this opportunity. They're just salivating because they know they have him. They know that they can have whatever they want in Syria. And this is why normalization is inevitable, because Israel's the bad cop, and Israel gets what it wants when America is involved. And Israel has made it clear that Syria only has two options. Option number one, if Syria decides not to normalize with Israel and decides not to give Israel control of the entire southern part of the country south of Damascus, if Syria resists that, then Syria is going to be transformed into a S-hole country, just a complete expletive whole country. Why? Constant civil war, constant ISIS attacks, constant attacks from the Druze, from other groups, from ISIS groups being armed. Who do you think is arming them? To generate sectarian strife, constantly creating nonstop, to just completely damage the stability of Syria, make sure Syria has no stability that they can build upon to rebuild their country or to survive. That's option number one. Option number two, you become a vassal of Israel. You become a buffer zone for Israel, like Jordan is, like Egypt is, like Saudi is, to a certain extent. You're just going to be a buffer zone. You're going to be Jordan 2.0. We're going to completely own you, and your future is going to be in our hands. Maybe we won't, take more in the future. Maybe we will. We can't make you any promises, but you're just going to be basically Jordan 2.0. Those are your only two options. So this is why I say that we don't know the future of Syria. People who are saying, oh, well, at least it's better than Bashar al-Assad. Are you so sure? Are you so sure that in 1 year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time, things are going to be better? I don't know. How can you know? The direction that things are moving doesn't seem that way. It doesn't seem like things are going to be better. It seems like things are going to get much, much worse. And the sad thing is that a lot of Syrians who were beating their chests back in December and talking a big game about the Sunni revolution, the new Sunni caliphate that's going to be established, they seem to be fine with the new status quo of, let's just be puppies for Israel, and that means we're going to have a better economy, a marginally better economy. That's worth it. That's worth it. Okay, well then, what makes you different from any of these other countries? Like, what makes you different from the UAE? What makes you different from Saudi or Egypt? Just stabbing the Palestinians in the back, throwing the Muslims under the bus for your own bottom line, for your own pocket. Like, what makes you better? You have no moral high ground. And furthermore, you're making Sunnis look like the most spineless, myopic, opportunistic, greedy. Like, that's what you're making Sunnis look like. And I'm tired of Shia using this card against Sunnis. This is what the Shia are constantly saying. Look, our countries are battling Israel. We're launching missile strikes. We're actually helping the Palestinians. We help arm the Palestinians. This is what the Shia are saying. They're constantly using this card against the Sunnis. And the Sunnis, what are the Sunni countries up to? The Sunni leaders. And the reality is that you can say that, well, look, the Sunnis have no choice because of these leaders that have been installed, these dictators that have been installed. And the Sunnis are with the Palestinians, but this is the political reality in which the Sunnis live in the Middle East. But as soon as you start saying that, no, we love Goilani, and Goilani is this based ruler, this based about to be caliph for the new Sunni empire, when you fall for the psyop, and then that base Sunni leader is like taking photo ops with Zionists and playing basketball with head of Central Command, then you look stupid. You look like a complete sellout, especially if you continue to defend him. You continue to defend and promote him. You make Sunnism look retarded. So in line with what Goilani is doing in Washington, you also have this recent development, reports coming out that U.S. is going to establish an air base in Damascus. So, and I've been warning about this for months now, because it was announced. Like, I reported on Admiral Bradley Cooper saying we need a permanent presence in Syria. And I was saying, like, okay, this is game over. Once the U.S. has a military base that's established in the heart of Syria, then you can just consider Syria to be a vassal state of Israel. So I've been reporting on this for months now, but now there's a renewed report saying that, yeah, this is actually going to happen. It's going to be an air base. And the explanation that is given is that this is needed to keep Israel in check. Because Israel is being very aggressive towards Syria. So to keep Israel in check, the U.S. has to establish an air base in Syria. And so here we have coverage from Bilal Abdul Karim, brother Bilal, and he had some good things to say about this. So let's watch this.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Bilal Abdul Karim for OGN Maps. Today, we're going to be discussing a growing situation in the southern part of Damascus. Let's get started here. Right here is the Meza Military Airport. Now, this airport is right in the capital of Damascus, the capital of Syria. Now, who's going to be operating out of this airport? It's the Americans. There have already been eyewitness accounts of American aircraft. We're talking about helicopters taking off from this military air base in the southern part of the country. Now, some people may be sitting there saying, well, why is that significant? First, let's go to the reason why it's been stated that this military air base is needed for the Americans, because there's going to be an announcement soon, as has been said, of an agreement between Tel Aviv and Damascus, a security agreement. And it's been said that the Americans will basically be there to police the agreement, to make sure that nobody violates against anybody else. Well, let's pick that apart for a second. First issue is that Syria hasn't been violating anybody's sovereignty, because they haven't even been firing back on the Israelis. So it's not as if they need to keep two belligerents apart from one another. Ahmed al-Shara's government, to my knowledge, has not fired a single bullet into Israeli territory. So there's no need to worry about any type of aggression from the Syrian side. From the Israeli side, however, they have been quite aggressive, taking additional territory, setting up new checkpoints, coming in and out of Daraa in the southern part of the country, and so on and so forth. So some people may say, aha, that's the reason that they need to be at this air base to be able to monitor the agreement. Well, to that I would say, the first issue is that the Americans are bankrolling the Israelis. They are arming the Israelis, and in addition to all of that, they politically cover for the Israelis for a genocide taking place in the Palestinian territories. I'm not convinced that the Israelis actually will see the American base being here as a deterrent when they want to encroach on Syrian territory. Why? Let's take a look at ancient history. We look at what took place in Qatar. In Qatar, they have the biggest U.S. military base in the region called Odeid Military Base. It didn't stop the Israelis from going 2,000 kilometers from Israeli territory across Saudi Arabia into striking distance to be able to bomb Qatari territory as they were trying to kill Hamas members, the negotiators, and then to make their way back home without an incident. And Washington didn't know about it somehow. So as we're taking a look here, brothers and sisters, needing an American base here is a bit suspect to say that they actually need that level of protection from the Israelis when a phone call would probably do. Now let's take a look and see around the country. As you can see here, and we've got to look at something else. Washington and Tel Aviv's politics are one and the same. They're not. They don't differ. They may say, Donald Trump may say something slightly different from Netanyahu, so on and so forth, but it's virtually the same. Do you remember when Donald Trump said that he was going to make sure that Israel didn't annex the West Bank? Well, what's Israel doing right now? They last month saw the biggest uptick of settler attacks on Palestinian territories. There have been more than 275 people killed as a result of, after the signing of the ceasefire. Donald Trump hasn't said a single word about that. Okay, so now let's take a look and see. This in purple is an air base which the Americans have access to. Another one here in Tenerife. Another one here. This is the Kurdish-controlled militia force areas, and another here, and another here. You have to understand that the Kurdish militia forces that are in the northeast are Israeli Tel Aviv friendly. So we are looking at a possible threat to Syria's sovereignty, having so many bases that the Americans have access to, when the Americans are the biggest backers and funders of the Israelis. And now they have a legitimate base inside of Syria. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, so that's very clear. You know why I like to play Bilal Abdul Kareem's analysis is because he was also anti-Assad. So you can't accuse him of being an Assadist. You can't accuse him of being some kind of Iranian agent. He's just, calling it as it is. He's looking at the situation. He's saying, like, this doesn't add up. Why do you need to establish a Air Force base right in southern Syria to deter Israel? Like, you think the U.S. is going to take up any kind of action against Israel? And he also didn't mention the fact that Israel literally bombed Damascus, has been bombing Damascus, even bombed military headquarters within Damascus. So you think that that's going to be prevented by a U.S. airbase being there? And the Qatar example he gives is very apt, because did the massive Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar prevent Israel from attacking Qatar? No. So this is just a ruse. It's just a pretext to further entrench U.S. forces within Syria permanently. And when that happens, it's about preventing Syrians from resisting what Israel wants to do. Israel, we know, has plans, greater Israel plans to take over Syria, to take over Lebanon, to take over the West Bank, Gaza. Obviously, they're doing it right now. Jordan as well, eventually, and even parts of Egypt, the Sinai of Egypt. This is the greater Israel project. Netanyahu says that's his vision for Israel, the future of Israel. And Israel is making moves. They're taking territory. They're establishing military checkpoints within Syrian territory. We're talking about way beyond the Golan Heights. We're talking about way beyond Golan Heights, Mount Hermon. Israel is encroaching mile by mile, kilometer by kilometer into Syrian territory, and they want to be able to do this without any kind of Syrian resistance. And that's what the U.S. military bases are for, is to keep everything in check, allow Israel to do whatever it wants in taking over Syria. And Goilani is letting it happen. Goilani is facilitating this. And is he really that incompetent? Is he really that blind to what everyone else can see? Or is he literally a psyop? Like, he's literally an agent of the CIA. And once again, I remind you that this is his good friend, David Petraeus.
So this next one is about you personally.
And we can...
how are you holding?
Former head of the CIA calling Ahmed SHARAA his buddy, asking if he's getting enough sleep at night, being really concerned about him.
So
look at this.
This next one is about you personally. How are you holding up under all this pressure? Are you getting time to do some thinking? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Again, I've been there, and it is so very, very hard. And your many fans, and I am one of them, we do have worries.
Oh, so cute. So, again, for those of you who don't know, I covered this in previous shows. Project Timber Sycamore was a CIA project in the Obama era to take advantage of the Arab Spring to oust Bashar al-Assad and the Iranian presence within Syria, because that Iranian presence was a proxy that threatened Israel. That was a big threat to Israel. So it had to be neutralized, had to be eliminated. Project Sycamore, Timber Sycamore, was about arming ISIS and other rebels so that they could oust Bashar al-Assad and install a pro-US, pro-Israel regime in Syria and make Syria into a vassal of Israel. That was the plan. And David Petraeus is the one who drawed it up. He drawed up this plan. He funneled the arms and the weapons and the funding to Goilani, to HTS. And now, you know, it's all revealed. They're having this buddy session, and he's asking about if he's getting enough sleep at night. Don't forget that Goilani also met with President of the World Jewish Congress, Ronald Lauder, okay? Ronald Lauder, a hardcore Zionist who thinks that anti-Semitism has to be outlawed throughout the world. Anti-Semitism, meaning criticism of Israel, has to be outlawed around the world. He thinks that there needs to be more pressure put on Muslims to demonize Muslims. He's, you know, one of the worst. And here he is smiling with Goilani, talking about, you know, how are we going to remove these sanctions for Syria? It's all for the Syrian people. We care so much about the Syrian people. We just want to help Syria have a prosperous and peaceful future. That's all we want, because we know how charitable and loving the Zionists are. All they care about are the Syrians, the poor Syrians. So this is like, are you seeing this? Am I crazy? Like, why are there still people in my replies who are defending Goilani? Why? Like, I am at the point where I just have to assume that anyone who's still defending Goilani and his administration is a CIA bot. Like, that's the only conclusion that we can come to. And then here is Goilani shaking hands with Putin when he went to Moscow last month. And I just point this out because you have all of these free Syria simps and medkhalis who claim that the main reason that Syria cannot work with Iran and Syria has to block Iran and has to block Hezbollah and has to block this entire axis is because they committed crimes in Syria. Oh, 6 million Syrian Sunnis were killed in Syria by Iran. Khamenei, personally went and butchered 6 million Sunnis. So we can't have any kind of deal with Iran. We can't cooperate with Iran. Okay, if that's true, then why are you shaking hands with Putin? Why are you shaking hands with Putin? Now, it was revealed recently that Putin stood down from defending Assad and was allowing this revolution to take place with Goilani and HTS at the lead. He gave the stand down order. And this was huge. This was huge. Why? Because when he gave that stand down order, it wasn't just for Goilani to take over Damascus from Idlib and go all the way to Damascus. That wasn't the only part of the stand down. Part of the stand down was also to neutralize the air defenses. No air defense. And what happened? Israel came in and took out all of Syria's defenses. All their military installations, all of their weapons depots were taken out one by one by Israel. And the defenses, the air defenses that Russia has in place in Syria weren't shooting back. Interesting. Why was that? And the way that Russia operates is that Russia is very pragmatic. They saw that, okay, well, this revolution is going to happen. It's being backed by the US and Israel. We have to become a partner. We have to become a partner with Goilani and play ball with this. And so we're going to stand down. That's what happened. So those who are purists about, we cannot ally with anyone who has Sunni blood on their hands. Well, there's Putin right there shaking hands with your Goilani. And Russia was much more instrumental in destroying Syria's infrastructure. They were much more instrumental than Iran or Hezbollah. Russia had the air power that they used to bomb hospitals, to bomb civilian infrastructure. That is causing the crisis, that caused a humanitarian crisis, and is the main problem economically that Syria has today, is because their entire infrastructure has been obliterated, primarily from Russia, Russian airstrikes. So if you want to talk about dead Syrians, the biggest cause of that has been Russia. And I'm not trying to exonerate Iran. Iran also played a part. Hezbollah also played a part. And these are crimes that they committed against the Syrian people. And they should be held accountable for those crimes. But I'm consistent. I'm consistent in calling out those who are killing Muslims, who have Muslim blood on their hands. It's Goilani who is shaking hands with Putin. It's the Goilani simps who are defending all of this. It's Goilani who's playing basketball with Central Command, who has the blood of millions of Iraqis and Afghans on his hands. Where is the consistency? Where is the honesty? Where is the accountability? And then you have the Aqidah warriors who are saying, no, this is about Aqidah purity. We cannot have any alliance with the Shia. We can have alliance with the Jews and the Christians, like the US and Israel. We can have alliance there, but we can't ally with the Shia. Okay, well, here is your Goilani, who's going to Azerbaijan, a Shia country, and he is paying his respects, literally bowing his head to the statue of national leader Heydar Aliyev. Shia background, communist, with his statue there. Goilani is, putting flowers, bowing his head. It's a Shia country. But guess what? Azerbaijan is pro-Israel and anti-Iran, so I guess it adds up, huh? Guess it adds up. So there's no consistent justification that you can give, whether it's like from a Sunni Aqidah purism explanation or oh, we care so much about Sunni lives and you're pissing on Syrian graves explanation. There's no consistent explanation that you can give for Goilani's behavior other than he is a CIA plant who is working for the US and Israel to turn Syria into Jordan 2.0, a vassal state for Washington and Tel Aviv. That's the only consistent explanation for this behavior from what we've seen from him all this time, from the very beginning. And my only regret is that I didn't see it from day one. My only regret is that I gave him the benefit of the doubt for a few weeks. I said, okay, let's wait and see. That's my only regret. But I was, even for having a benefit of doubt, giving him the benefit of the doubt, I was still tarred and feathered and accused of being an Iranian Madkhali. So, this whole basketball photo op was so bad that you have even the Ba'athist, Arab nationalist simps, Goilani simps like Zuma saying, oh, absolutely pathetic. No one should be apologetic about crap like this. Excuse me? Excuse me, Zumas? Excuse me? Are you criticizing our blessed revolutionary leader? Are you criticizing him? Are you a Shia? Are you a Rafidi Iranian agent? How dare you? How dare you? Don't you know he's trying to rebuild the country? What else is he going to do other than bend over? What else is he going to do? Okay, so you're an Iranian Madkhali. You're an agent, Zumas. He literally is, but that's for another episode. And then you have this Talha Berg. This Talha Berg also complaining, SHARAA and Shaybani shooting hoops with U.S. Central Command Commander Bradley Cooper isn't the flex some fanboys think it is. These guys have the blood of thousands of Muslims on their hands, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is wildly inappropriate. As if Talha Berg, another agent, cares about Sunni lives. Yeah, this is not the first time Goilani has been canoodling with U.S. Central Command. He's been having meetings with them for months. Months. What about his lovey-dovey session with Petraeus? Like, did you have anything to say about that? Was that highly inappropriate? Was that highly inappropriate? Talha Berg, you didn't say anything. The thing is that things have gotten so bad that they have to do damage control now. Like, these agents, literal agents, are doing damage control because they have to say something before losing all credibility. They have to say something about this. Otherwise, they're going to be completely discredited as the agents that they are. So they have to say, oh, this is inappropriate, guys. This is inappropriate. You shouldn't be playing basketball. Like, have some decorum. Keep your meetings private. Keep your meetings, behind closed doors. Maybe don't videotape the fun outings that you have together. Maybe keep that. Like, this is inappropriate, guys. Even, what's his face? Wissam, remember? Remember the Nasibi that I debated along with Talha Berg last year on Shiism, and Syria also is included in that debate. You can go watch it on the channel. Even Wissam, even this Nasibi who insults Ahlul Bayt, insults Ali radiallahu anhu, insults Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even Wissam is coming out and calling Goilani an agent. And he's playing this video where the Turkish foreign minister spilled some beans and said that Goilani set up the biggest trap in Al-Qaeda's history. Okay, he claimed he sold out Zawahiri and established an Al-Qaeda emirate, and sleeper cells came to him secretly from every country. Once they gathered, he gave the international U.S. coalition their coordinates and addresses, and they were killed in the most brutal way, wiping out the organization. Then he simply cut ties with them. Mission accomplished. So Wissam is just outright saying Goilani is an agent. He's working with the CIA. He's working as a double agent, pretending like he's with Al-Qaeda, but actually selling them out and blowing them to smithereens. giving the coordinates to the U.S. so the U.S. can drone strike them and finish them off. Like, so this is Wissam. Are you going to accuse Wissam of being an Iranian agent? Is Wissam a Iranian medkhali like me? Is Wissam doing taqiyya and pretending like he's a Sunni, but actually he's a Shia Rafidi? Maybe you should level that accusation against him, because he's actually going, further than I'm saying. He's actually calling him out as just a pure agent. And, that's what I'm saying too at this point. I think that it's pretty clear. Either way, this is a disaster for Syria. It's just so damaging for the Middle East, the future of the Muslims. And then here you had this idiot, Imam John Eder. He's also an agent. Long history of being an agent, actually, but he's not like important enough to talk about at length. But so news came out about building U.S. military base in Damascus, and then this imam, this guy is in the United States. He's like a convert, allegedly. He says, this is actually brilliant diplomacy, which just got all sanctions lifted today. The base will be a means of dawah and another deterrent against future Israeli aggression. You can choose to see it through Iranian lens, Iranian Shia lens, or you can listen to the people who are there. Muslims and Christians of all shades, secular folk, and even many Druze and Kurds. If you look at it through their lens, this is a beautiful opportunity for dawah and a beautiful opportunity for peace and prosperity, says the imam. So, for dawah, the soldiers that are based in Damascus, we can do dawah. So, if you don't laugh, you cry. Okay, this is Adnan. Before we get into Adnan, so it looks like the meeting has concluded with Trump. Goilani had the meeting, and Trump has announced, lift sanctions. Lift the sanctions, and you have a bunch of these Syrians who are celebrating in Washington, D.C., waving the flag. Yay! Sanctions are lifted. No, you idiots. No, you idiots. Sanctions have not been lifted. Trump cannot lift the sanctions. It requires a congressional vote. It requires Congress to lift those sanctions. So Trump can only give an executive order that applies temporarily and partially for 6 months. And that won't do the job. That won't do the job. And this is why Goilani is there begging for a full and permanent removal of the sanctions, because if it's only temporary 6 months, that's not enough for investors to have the confidence to invest in Syria and start rebuilding. Because if 6 months expires and then that approval doesn't get extended to remove those sanctions, the sanctions will come back in place and then all that investment will be gone. So they need a permanent removal of the sanctions. They need to repeal the Caesar Act permanently, and that's not going to happen without congressional approval. And guess who owns Congress? Guess who owns all of these congressmen that Goilani is meeting with and doing photo ops with? It's Netanyahu, and Netanyahu is not going to remove those sanctions. Netanyahu is not going to allow sanctions to be removed unless there's a very significant deal that's going to be made. It will either be Syria joining the Abraham Accords, or it's going to be a stepping stone towards that. It's going to be a massive security agreement that's going to give all of southern Syria to Israel, basically, for all intents and purposes. So if behind closed doors, and by the way, Sheibani and the Goilani administration, it has been meeting with Israel in Azerbaijan and elsewhere. They've been having meetings. They've been working on this agreement. If they have come to a point where there will be all of these concessions made to Israel, then maybe Netanyahu is going to call the congressman, like Brian Mast of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and say, okay, repeal the Caesar Act. Get Congress to repeal the Caesar Act. That's the only way that's going to happen. So all of these Syrians who are celebrating and say, sanctions are being removed, and what other choice do we have? How are we going to rebuild our country? You idiots, like any kind of deal that SHARAA makes it's going to be quid pro quo. What are you going to be giving to Israel? What is your country going to be giving up to the US and Israel in return for these sanctions removal? Have you thought about that? Like, do you not understand how geopolitics works, how deals are made? You scratch my back, I scratch yours. You give us what we want if you want us to give you what you want. And right now, all the cards are in the hands of Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. Any kind of leverage that Goilani had was squandered, was eliminated. So he has no choice. Like, this is, unfortunately, the psyop. This is, you got played. You got played. And instead of immediately calling it out, like, okay, this is something very fishy, this is very suspicious, we shouldn't just be backing this revolution, we shouldn't be praising Goilani, let's see what he actually does, you idiots fell for it. Many of you fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And it has to be pointed out because people need to just wake up to how easily they're duped. Like, how much more can you just be played by Israel, by the United States? Like, it's 75 years or more, actually. Go back to World War I. You could even go before that, but World War I is a good point of departure. Allying with the British against the Ottomans, for starters. How about that? You know, when you looked at the Arab revolt against the Ottomans. When you look at the Saudi, Abdulaziz ibn Saud allying with the British against the Ottomans. Like, we've just been played over and over and over again, going way back over 100 years, and we still can't learn. we still don't learn our lesson. And I wrote an article actually about, like, one of the lines that some of these agents are using is that, oh, it's better to ally with the US and Russia than with Iran because Iran wants to build Shia temples and Muta offices in Syria, in Damascus. But if we ally with the US and Israel, they're going to let us practice our religion as we see fit. They're not going to interfere in our internal matters. So that's why we have to ally with the US and Israel. They're literally making this argument. And this is very similar to the argument that was made, actually, by these Arab nationalists, like the beginning of Arab nationalism with Sharif Hussein, that he made the same argument. We have to actually expel the influence of the Ottomans. The Ottomans are interfering in the affairs of the Arabs, and we have to ally with the British. We have to ally with the British because the British are not going to interfere with our religion, with our practice. The Ottomans are. The Ottomans are going to impose their culture on us. So that's literally and I brought some historical documentation to show that this is the way that Sharif Hussein was thinking when he went and backstabbed the Ottomans and helped the British to take over in the Middle East, basically. Okay, so that is the analysis of Ahmad SHARAA, Goilani in Washington, D.C. We'll see what else develops. Now, to switch gears, I want to talk about our good friend, Uncle Retard, Adnan Rashid. And as I mentioned, he continues to refuse to condemn the UAE. He refuses to even criticize the UAE government, despite all of the replies, all of even his supporters saying, like, this is a very damning silence from you. And he doubles down, he triples down, and now we kind of know the reason why. It's because he's a Medkhali. He's a Medkhali. So let's listen to what he says. This was recorded very recently in Speaker's Corner, and it was published, and he comes out and says it so that there's no doubt, like, what his quote-unquote Aqidah is.
Yeah.
Can we criticize their political decisions?
Yes.
Rulers' political decisions? Is there a differentiation in what we can and can't criticize?
When it comes to criticism, for example, okay, if every human being has the right, Islamically speaking, to criticize the ruler, right, to him, to his face, but to go publicly, let's say, look, it's a very good question the brother asked. Can we as Muslims, yeah, no, it's a different question. Yeah. Can a Muslim criticize the ruler? Yes, absolutely. But what does this criticism constitute is the question. For example, criticism could be you approach the ruler, you write an email to him, and you speak directly to him somehow and tell him, I think you're wrong in this. No problem with that. But then there's another type of criticism. You go to a public square and you get people together. And then you say, this ruler is this and this and this and this. And then there are all types of gullible people in the crowd. They get lured into becoming more violent and more pronounced. Rebellion is become. Then what happens? I mean, we are from Pakistan.
So there you have it. You know, that is the Madkhali line. You cannot publicly criticize the ruler. You can't, because it leads to violence. It's going to lead to violence, and this is khuruj bil lisan. And this is what we saw from the Madkhalis. We have seen from the Madkhalis, people like Shamsi, people like Rabbi Ferris, people like Dollar Store Pitbull. And now we see it from Adnan, from Fareed. Fareed also had this line, by the way. When we tell Fareed, Bahraini, hey, you claim to be so concerned about shirk. You're so concerned about condemning shirk. Well, guess what? In the UAE, they've built all these Hindu temples, and the government is facilitating literal pagan idol worship. If you're so strict about Tawheed and calling out shirk wherever it is in the world, then why aren't you criticizing the UAE government for this? Why? You want to criticize anyone who is associated with shirk if they're affiliated with Iran, or they're calling for alliance or allyship with Iran against Israel. You want to call them shirk apologists because you're so concerned about shirk. But here is a government that is building Hindu temples. Why don't you criticize that? And Fareed, what did Fareed say? He said, well, if I had an opportunity to speak to the ruler directly, I would tell him. I would advise him. That's literally what Fareed said. And I've shared the screenshot before of Fareed saying this. And Adnan is saying, oh, you have to write an email. You have to get, the email address of MBZ or MBS or whoever and write a private email. Dear MBZ, I love you, bro, but this whole Hindu temple thing, or, this genocide in Sudan that you're backing, all these Sudanese Muslims that are getting killed, about that? I think that's a bad idea. Can you please stop? I don't think this is Islamic. I don't think this is good to back a genocide of Sudanese Muslims, or to build Hindu temples, or to sign normalization agreements with Israel, or to provide Israel with finances, with funding, with labor. I don't think it's good to abolish the Sharia that you're doing in your country. I don't think these are good things. Can you maybe look into that, bro? Can you maybe, Habibi? Habibi? Like, that is Adnan's prescription, his formula for Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi Anil Munkar, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Adnan thinks there's an asterisk in this command from Allah in the Quran to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Adnan says that that's only for Iran, it's only for Shia, it's only for the opponents of Israel, it's only for the enemies of Israel and the Gulf. But for everyone else, private message, private email. You can send a private email. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar, loudly on your channel, on Twitter, nonstop attack, nonstop criticism when it comes to the enemies of Israel, whether that be Iran or whether that be the Palestinians. Because remember how Adnan criticized Hamas and called their leaders fools and said that the Palestinian leadership are fools for allying with Iran? Remember that? Wasn't that a public criticism of the rulers? Interesting. Very interesting that you have an exception for your Madkhali principles. You will criticize Iranian government and you'll criticize Palestinian government, who happen to be the biggest enemies of Israel. Wow, gee, what a coincidence. What a coincidence that these are the only two countries that you will publicly criticize the rulers. Interesting. Interesting coincidence, Adnan. So this is his coming out party as a Madkhali, as a bootlicker. And I was happy to see like so many people commenting that you are just a bootlicking dog. You are a disgusting sellout. Now it all makes sense. Now it all adds up. This is why you won't criticize the UAE for its backing of a genocide in Sudan. You pretend to care about Sunnis. You pretend that, oh, your heart is bleeding for Sunni deaths. But now we know the only deaths that you are concerned about are deaths that you can pin on the enemies of Israel. That's your only concern, actually. And then he responded, he said, Daniel the Rafidi resistard wants rebellion in the Muslim world. Working for Iran, he wants the entire Sunni world destroyed. He hates the Sunnah. He is attacking me for teaching the Sunnah. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, forbade rebellions. Haqiqatjou hates that. See below. And he cites, the well-known hadith of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not allowing rebellion against the rulers. So I clarified, or I commented, and ratioed him. Obviously, it's very easy to ratio this clown. I say, I do not think Muslims should rebel against tyrant rulers, but Muslims should criticize these rulers, even publicly. That's what's required. You and the Madkhali bootlickers say public criticism is not allowed. In fact, you say that it's khuruj bil lisan. It's going to cause violent rebellion against the rulers, so you can't do it. This is why you won't criticize the UAE for backing Rapid Support Force genocide against Sunnis, but somehow you will criticize Palestinian leaders and call them fools. Stop pretending like you care about Sunni lives, you charlatan. So we've already debunked Madkhalism, we've already debunked all of these sources and hadith that they claim supports their deviant position. And you can watch the Madkhali virus video on our channel if you're interested in that, how the Madkhalis are distorting the Sunnah for political purposes. Like, the most disgusting abuse of the Quran and Sunnah comes from these Madkhali Wahhabis. And Adnan Rashid has outed himself as a Madkhali. He hid it well. I don't think many knew that he was a bootlicker. All the signs were there. But now he's making it very clear, very explicit that, yeah, it is not allowed to criticize rulers. The ruler, by the way, he says the ruler. Like, okay, who's the ruler? My ruler is not MBZ. My ruler is not MBS. My ruler is not Khamenei. They're not my ruler. So what do you mean we can't criticize the ruler? That's a deliberately ambiguous point from the Madkhalis. They don't define who the ruler actually is. But he's outed himself. He's saying that if he criticizes MBZ, there's gonna be a rebellion. There's gonna be like a bloody rebellion in Dubai, and that's why you can't criticize UAE backing genocide. So this is the kind of Madkhali rot that has festered in the dawah, and we have to excise it. In the sense that we have to completely delegitimize these individuals. They have a conflict of interest. They are not teaching Islam. They are not teaching the Quran and Sunnah, and they're not doing dawah. They are teaching Islam asterisks. They are doing dawah asterisks. They are teaching Quran and Sunnah asterisks. You know what that asterisk is? Asterisk means teaching Islam as approved by the Gulf. Doing dawah, calling to Islam as approved by the Gulf. Teaching Quran and Sunnah as approved by the Gulf. The Gulf that is working directly hand in hand with the Zionists, with Israel. That's the only kind of dawah Adnan Rashid is allowed to give. And in fact, his dawah now has become full-time attack, detracting from the enemies of Israel. That's all his dawah has become. So this is a conflict of interest. Apparently he has business interests in Dubai, in the UAE. I've asked him about it multiple times. Information has come to light where he's being given like private tours at some of the these museums that are funded by the royal family. Like he has that kind of exclusive access. I shared the video and you saw it on the channel. You saw it on the show. So this is a conflict of interest. You're not an independent agent. You're not speaking on behalf of Islam or speaking on behalf of Sunni Muslims. You're speaking on behalf of your funders, your financiers. And, you know, you're canceled. Like you have to be canceled for that. That's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. Yeah, so this is Adnan Rashid's coming out party as a bootlicker. And I'm glad to see people are really angry, upset. They're calling him out. They feel like they've been duped because he had a lot of supporters. A lot of supporters who, for some reason, they didn't. After they saw him like stumble through that debate that we had, where he can't even be consistent on some of these principles that he claims to follow. Like, is it shirk to make istighatha to angels and jinn? Remember, he was completely stumped. He had no response to that. So he had these supporters, but even those supporters are turning on him. They're saying, hey, I supported you, Adnan, but this is really too far. This is unacceptable. Yeah, it's a terrible crash out. Okay, guys, so that's our show for today. Let me look at your super chats. Tell me what you think. Aoud Garay says, Goilani has left the, quote, jihad community in shambles. He single-handedly exposed the last 30 years of Middle East jihad as a psyop. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's just complete exposure. And he's working with, as that Dr. Wissam stated, he's been working with the CIA, giving information leading to strikes against these other Wahhabis. So even if you're a supporter of Wahhabism and you're supporting ISIS and you're supporting Al-Qaeda, Goilani has come out and proved that he's a spy. Like he's an enemy. Like he's working to dismantle that completely. So I guess that's a good thing. That's a good thing for the Wahhabis to be self-destructing, at least that the Daeshi wing. And part of like a major part of the security agreement that Goilani has made with the U.S. when he's meeting with Admiral Bradley Cooper and others, part of it is to fight ISIS. Goilani is going to help the U.S. fight ISIS. But obviously, it's whoever the U.S. decides is ISIS. Whoever the U.S. says, yeah, this is an extremist, we have to take him out. It's not like Goilani is going to have any kind of say to oppose that. So he's going to be helping the U.S. make sure that there are no Islamists in Syria. There can be no one in Syria that is calling for Sharia, calling for actual Islamic government. Anyone who is going to call for that in Syria is going to be labeled as ISIS and is going to be neutralized, is going to be taken out with the blessing, if not the assistance, if not the facilitation of Goilani. So it's going to be the same security agreement that the U.S. has with all of the Arab countries. Like the reason that we call these countries puppets of the United States is that these countries work with the United States to ensure that there can be no Islamism in their territory and there can be no threat from Islamism or otherwise to Israel from their territory. That's what makes them a puppet. Because that's the main thing that the people within the Middle East, the Arabs of the Middle East, that's the main thing that they want. They have wanted for decades, is that they want Islamism and they want opposition to Israel. And whenever there's a free election, that's what they choose. That's what overwhelmingly wins in the Middle East. So that's why you have to install these puppets, these tyrants, to quell that, to crush any kind of Islamism, any kind of political movement that is anti-Israel and pro-Islam, pro-Sunni Islam. You have to neutralize that. And now Syria has been installed as another component of that security agreement that covers the entire Middle East, except Iran, of course, and parts of Lebanon and parts of Yemen. So, yeah, it's like a well-executed plan. A well-executed plan from the United States and Israel to eliminate, any kind of quote-unquote jihad. Quote-unquote jihad. You infiltrate these jihadi networks. You infiltrate the Wahhabis. You use the Wahhabis through that infiltration as your weapon, as your tool to advance your interests. And then, you cut off loose ends. You cut off loose ends. You eliminate any loose ends. It's like just a very easy operation. Well, maybe not easy, but it's a very intricate operation. But it's easy when everyone is buying the PSYOP. This Medkhali keeps giving me super chats. Well, I appreciate the support of the channel. Thank you. He says, "You have become a huge disappointment and a Shabbos goy, emotional. Oh, do you condemn this, that, the UAE to divide us more and make us hate our own people? All emotion. Do you also hate the Gulf Arabs?" So what are you talking about? Like, my criticism of MBZ and the UAE government backing a genocide means I hate Arabs or I hate Gulf Arabs? Yeah, okay. I'm the emotional one. I'm the emotional one. Don't condemn. When Sunnis are killed and they're being genocided in Sudan, no one should condemn that. No one should call out the backing of that by the UAE, because that's being emotional and that's going to cause division. Just be silent as Sunnis are being massacred. Just stay silent. Don't raise a peep. Otherwise, that's causing division and that's being emotional. And that means you hate Arabs. That's really brilliant. The same guy says, "And this feel-good massage, oh, Christian, look, our religion also has been corrupted. We also haven't the Schofield Bible, and our religion has also been corrupted, even though the Bible was written by 40 Jews. Please, brother, can you learn some basic English? Maybe put your message in ChatGPT to correct the language before you send me this slop. I'm not gonna keep reading this slop if you can't write complete sentences." What? It's just a rant. This is just I don't even know what you're saying. What is the criticism here? What feel-good massage are you talking about? Last word says, "Did Adnan write an email to rulers of Gaza before calling them idiots publicly?" I don't think so. John Smith asks your views on Mufti Yasser Nadim. Mashallah, he's a good scholar, and he also does a lot of debates. He has a lot. We've had a lot of collaborations in the past, so he's a good scholar, mashallah. John Smith says, "Is ISIS really a Western op? Why?" This is a good question, but there are so many indications. I mean, there's actual literal proof. There's literal proof that many of the ISIS commanders turned out to be Mossad. That's one indication. Many of them worked with the CIA. And I posted this, the main leader of ISIS-K in Afghanistan turned out to be a like literal former CIA operative. So this is known, and this is the kind of operation that the U.S. has conducted, and the West has conducted, and Israel has conducted. They infiltrate any kind of religious Muslim movement or political movement. They infiltrate and they try to steer that organization towards committing terrorism, towards committing these massacres to give Muslims a bad name. And not everyone in ISIS might be in on it, but they're just following leaders who are these double agents. So there's the thing about ISIS is that at some point Israel realized that, well, instead of infiltrating an existing political movement, why don't we just create a terrorist organization and just have it completely under our control, and we'll recruit from all over the world, and we'll create this scary Muslim force, and they will commit all of these attacks to generate maximum hatred for Muslims. And if you look at the timing of when ISIS came onto the scene, it's like the perfect timing, because this was in the years 2011, the Arab Spring had happened. You had waning support for Israel's wars in the Middle East by 2011, after the end of Obama's first term. So there was a desperate need for an injection of mass hysteria against Islam so that the American public would support a renewed offensive in the Middle East in order to go after Syria, go after Lebanon, go after Iran, go after Iraq, and really solidify Israel's position in the Middle East. The gas had run out from 9/11. 9/11 provided 10 years, over a decade of anti-Muslim sentiment, gas that fueled the American wars for the sake of Israel. By Obama's first term, by the end of his first term, that gas had run out. So you needed another injection. And then lo and behold, suddenly ISIS comes onto the scene doing these, beheadings and recording it like on video. And somehow the US is getting access to these videos and they're broadcasting it all over mainstream media. Look at this is a new level of barbarism. So it had to be like extreme shock and awe to generate this kind of fervor, this kind of anxiety and fear of Muslims and Islam, to empower Obama and the deep state within the United States to push for more and more intervention in the Middle East and a permanent presence in the Middle East. And they're still using that justification to this day. Admiral Bradley Cooper, when he says that we need to have a permanent presence in Syria, he says this on the basis of ISIS. He says that ISIS is still around, so we have to fight them. So that justifies us continuing to be present in Syria. That's literally his congressional testimony, is citing ISIS. So it's just very convenient, is it not? You have this organization suddenly coming on the scene overnight. They have really a lot of funding. How did ISIS get all this funding? They're driving like all these brand new Toyota trucks, right? They're driving these Toyota trucks, all of these weapons with really high production values. I didn't know like the terrorists operating out of caves have such high quality camera equipment that they're recording all these videos and they're putting out like all of this material, a social media blitz, well coordinated social media blitz all of a sudden, and they're acting against all of Israel's enemies, by the way. Interesting. Like there was one very blatant example. Japan, the country of Japan, sent millions of dollars of aid to the Palestinians, and they said that we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. This happened around 2013, I believe. And then literally within a couple of weeks, a Japanese journalist or diplomat was captured by ISIS and beheaded. And so you have to wonder, why is ISIS going after the Japanese diplomat? Why? What is the purpose of that? How is that going to establish a caliphate? But this is the way that ISIS operates. So ISIS, if you want to understand what ISIS is, it's ideologically, it's Wahhabism. They're taking the ideas of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the takfirism of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, to justify fighting Muslims, to justify killing Muslims, non-stop jihad against Muslims. They're getting this from Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is the one who inaugurated and developed, if you can call it that, these ideas of takfiring Muslims, mass takfir, to justify massacres of Muslims. It's based off of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's ideology. First, you takfir the Muslims. You say that they're upon shirk. These are mushrik murtads, so it's justified to fight jihad against them, to take their women and children and their wealth, and to massacre them. So Wahhabism is like the perfect ideology for an Israeli psyop, for an Israeli like sleeper organization or a CIA organization, and that's what ISIS actually is. So hopefully that is useful. I need to do a video, inshallah, on how ISIS has been like a tool of the CIA and Wahhabis in general. Like Wahhabism is the perfect tool for the CIA. Mo Khan 95 says, appreciate your work, brother. Thank you for the super chat. Muslim Boogeyman says, future stream on the Republican Civil War. Yeah, inshallah, we'll see if there's any big development. Can talk about it. The civil war between the pro-Israel and anti-Israel wing of the Republican Party, and Tucker Carlson's position within the Republican Party as someone who is critical of Israel and wants the United States to decouple from Israel, and the kind of attack that he's been getting from the Zionist lobby. That's a good topic. Inshallah, we can cover that. Okay, let's look at your other chats. Let's see. Any other comments before we end the show? The game says, why was Jolani released from prison by the Americans in March 2011 just in time for the Syrian revolution? Coincidence or strategic? That's when Operation Timber Sycamore was launched. Sports and Stocks Talk says, Salam Daniel, alhamdulillah Sami, Hamdi has been released from detention, going back to the UK soon and safely. Alhamdulillah, that's great news. I didn't see that. I guess did it happen like since this morning? That's really great news if it's true. Wahhabis. John Smith says Wahhabis manage the Kaaba. What if it wasn't so? That would be better. Things would be much better. Let's ball up, brother Daniel, one-on-one. Yeah, anytime. Just getting back into basketball, so I've been playing about once a week, alhamdulillah. And yeah, I played a lot of basketball growing up, and that's my sport, so I can play, inshallah. So is Fareed also going to continue to remain silent on Sudan? I guess so. You don't see anything from Fareed. You don't see anything from Jake. They are not interested in calling out the UAE for backing genocide. So they're medkhalis. I mean, they're card-carrying medkhalis. Daniel, how much weight did you lose? Alhamdulillah, like I lost 50 pounds, like over 50 pounds. I guess that's like 20 kilos. But I need to lose more. I need to lose more. I've kind of been a little bit lax on the diet, but I need to get back into it. John Smith says, I never doubted Islam and Sharia, but was struggling to understand slavery, sex slavery, women's status in Islam. Your videos helped me immensely in understanding them. Alhamdulillah, glad to hear it, bro. That's always good to hear. And that material is more relevant now than ever because there's this massive push to demonize Islam and to demonize Muslims from Israel. Netanyahu literally announced in September, end of September, that we have to renew our social media battle. That's our 8th front in the war against terrorism. So that social media attack really focuses on issues like slavery in Islam, minor marriage in Islam, these kinds of issues. So we have all this material produced over the years to prevent Muslims from making the same mistakes they made in the past in responding to these attacks. If you respond in an apologetic way by throwing Islam under the bus, by saying, oh no, Islam came to abolish slavery, this kind of really failed apologetics, you're only going to make the attacks worse. You're only going to ignite more animosity for more attacks against Islam, as opposed to just diffusing it and explaining, like, yeah, slavery, that is a part of the Sharia. Yeah, we had concubines, like concubinage is a part of the Sharia. That's allowed in the Quran, and this is how you explain it, and go step by step by step. So that material that you've seen from my debates, from my videos, you need to put that in practice. Like, you need to be less apologetic. You need to be based, be a Muslim Chad. This is I show speed. Islam says stair climbing machine is best. I lost 50 kg in 4 weeks. Were you eating anything in those 4 weeks? Because it's impossible to lose 50 kg in a month. It's actually unless you weigh 800 pounds. If you're like over 400 kg in weight, then it's impossible to lose 50 kg in a month. I'm sorry. Like the weight that I lost, it's over like a year and a half. A year and a half to just lose like 20 or 22 kg. So took a long time, and it's a struggle, it's a struggle to lose weight. How do you bench? How much do I bench? Oh, and you're posting your physique too in this in your PFP. I don't really focus on bench, but my max was 235, pounds, 235 pounds, and can do a couple of reps of that. But I don't really focus on bench because my shoulder starts hurting, and I don't want to injure my shoulder doing bench. So I do upper chest workouts, but not bench press so much. Bench press is good, like if you can do it without injuring yourself or without getting like pain in your shoulder. And yeah, people say, well, oh, your form is wrong. You're doing it in the wrong form. No, I have good form. Like, I have very good form. Keep my elbows in the right position. And also, like, if you brace yourself too much with the bench press, you end up using lats. Like, you end up using a lot of back more than your pec muscles. So I don't get the same stimulus from bench press as other pec workout, other chest workouts. Like flies are the best. Like if you do some flies, like your chest is going to burn up from doing flies. But bench press, I was feeling it more in my shoulders. I was feeling it more in my back, like my lats, for example. So, I mean, that's what you need, especially if you're trying to max out. You're trying to really put like 2 plates or more than 2 plates on the bar. Then you have to really arch your back. You have to really dig in to the ground with your legs. So it becomes like a full body workout, which is great. Like if you're a power lifter, that's great. But if you're just trying to stay in shape, you're trying to put on a little bit of muscle, then bench press is not necessarily the ideal workout. It's not optimized. It's not optimal, as they say. Medicalism is like McDonald's. You feel like crap after consuming it. Yeah, if you are a former medkhali, I'm sure you feel a lot of cringe thinking about your time as a medkhali. I'm sure it doesn't feel good. Muslim Boogeyman says you have to lose weight gradually to make it sustainable. That's 100% true. Because you have to make lifestyle changes. That's what makes it so hard, because you get into certain habits with what you eat, how much you eat, your lack of activity. Like if you're sedentary, sitting behind a desk all day, you have to make lifestyle changes, and it's hard to change your life drastically. You have constraints, you have work, you have studies, you have a family. So you have to make gradual changes, and those gradual lifestyle changes will bring gradual weight loss. And that's what's going to be more permanent, as opposed to a crash diet. You know, people trying to fast like 24 hours without eating anything, 48 hours without eating anything. Yeah, your body is just going to make that up. You're just going to be more hungry to make up whatever lost weight that you had. So people should try to take it slow. Like lose a good rate of weight loss is like 1 pound per week. Like if you can lose 1 pound per week or maximum 2 pounds per week, that's good. If you're doing more than that, I think it's just not sustainable, and you have a lot of risk of just falling back into old habits because it's just too taxing on your system. Your system wants to maintain a kind of equilibrium, and it doesn't like drastic change. And if you try to drastically change your body, there's going to be a lot of your body is going to have all of this effort to recoup the losses. So for example, you'll just be hungrier. You'll be hungrier. You'll eat more. You'll have no energy to do anything. You'll just become more sedentary. Like you'll just crash. So just try to be gradual. Jawad says, Daniel, tuck your elbows into your ribs when you bench. Yeah, that's one of the main cues that people will give you. If you tuck your elbows in, like I do, I keep it like in a mid position, not flared out, not fully tucked in. If you keep it in a mid position, that's what is considered to be optimal for powerlifting. But I still get the shoulder pain. Hand position is also important. So if you have like a more neutral grip, so there are specialty bars that you can use, and they give you a neutral position for the bench and like hand position, and that helps my shoulder a lot. But then I feel it more in my lats than I do in my chest. So there's like a give and take. Dips are, yeah, weighted dips are really good. I was doing a lot of dips actually, and I get like more of a chest stimulus from that, but it puts a lot of pressure on my elbows, and then I get like elbow tendonitis. And then when I'm still recovering from a lot of elbow tendonitis, and then you're kind of out of commission. So you have to be careful with dips. I would be very careful not to go too hard on them. And there's a reason that they call it like the squat of the upper body. Like if you do a deep dip, it really hits your pecs really well. Do I do Olympic lifts? No, I do not. I'm not skilled enough to be doing Olympic lifts. But those Olympic lifters, that's where the real power is. Like if you look at how much weight they're moving and how fast, like how explosive you have to be to lift that weight off the ground and put it and to clean it above your head, that's like real power. And that's like you have to have a lot of skill for that. And your nervous system has to be like so finely tuned to be able to do that. And yeah, I never put any time into doing that. If you're an athlete though, if like you're an athlete, like some of you younger guys, and you want to be able to jump higher, do cleans, like do power cleans, like take weight and like start with something small and do like basic like jerks, clean and jerk movements. Find like a coach or watch videos online to learn how to do it safely, and that will just increase your explosive power. Like it will just make you more powerful in an explosive way. And you'll see a lot of transfer to your athletic movements with Olympic lifting. So that's my recommendation, Coach Daniel. This has become like a coaching stream. Weightlifting, fitness stream today. Jalaluddin Arumi says, "Forget weight, brother. Eat biryani." Yeah, that's my problem. That's my problem is biryani. Other delicious foods from the subcontinent. The game says, did you see Shamsi say that Hamas did Alexa flood to please Iran? Did he really say that? I need to find that clip. Because that would, I mean, that's along the same lines as what he's always been saying. That the Palestinians, Hamas, are just grave worshipping Rafidis. Jay Perez says, if you're not feeling your chest as much as your back, then there's definitely a form issue with your bench press. Try and get a legit coach if you haven't already. I don't think so. I don't think there's a problem with my form. I think that it's just the way the body moves weight. Like when you have complex movements, compound movements, like a bench press or a squat or a deadlift or even an overhead press, you're like the goal is lifting as much weight as possible, like because of the form of the movement. So your body will find ways to compensate. Like your stronger muscles are going to contribute more to you lifting that weight. You can't tell your body, okay, I want my pecs to really be moving most of this weight right now, as opposed to my leg drive, as opposed to my lats, as opposed to my shoulder, like my front delts. You can't specify that with compound movements. Your body, because the goal is just to move the weight. Like when you have 200 pounds on your chest, or you have 300 pounds on your back, or you're trying to pull 400-pound deadlift, you can't tell your body, okay, I make sure that my hamstrings are what's doing most of the pulling, or my glutes are doing most of the pulling to lift this 400 pounds off the ground. You can't tell your body to do that. Your body is going to compensate. So yeah, form cues will help minimize unsafe movements or kind of the redistribution of the weight to different parts of your body that you don't necessarily want to train. So form cues do help with that, but it can't fully eliminate that compensation that your body does. So I'm not a power lifter. I don't want to, my goal in life is not to deadlift 600 pounds or to squat 400 pounds or to bench 400 pounds. Like that's not my goal in life. My goal is to be healthy, to have some level of muscle development in these parts of the body, to lose fat, for example, to get a lower body fat percentage. So it's not really worth becoming a specialist in the bench press or the deadlift or the squat in order to achieve that goal, especially when there's a risk of injury. So I'm not trying to tell you don't do bench and don't do squat, don't do like the big three. I'm not discouraging anyone from doing that. A lot of people are motivated by that. A lot of people enjoy that. But I don't know why it's not like a necessity for weightlifting or a necessity for fitness to do the big three. And if it's going to potentially cause you to be injured, then it's better to actually avoid. Like do safer movements or less complex movements that you can really do safely and consistently, and maybe even isolate some of your muscle, isolate the chest, isolate your quads or whatever it may be. All you need is 50 minutes of powerlifting and 20 minutes of plyos. For what? Wahhabis can't lift weights. Yeah, if you lift weights, it might go against Tawheed. Because is it really your power or the power of Allah that's moving the weight? So if you think that you can exercise control over the weights in order to lift them, that's shirk actually. You're claiming that you're a demigod. You're deifying yourself. That's what they say, right? If you believe that imams or awliya or anbiya can exercise control over the universe, that's shirk. That's shirk, right? That's what Farid is saying. Muslim Boogeyman says 80 fat loss equals 80% diet, 20% exercise. Absolutely agree with that. Looks like we gotta do like a pure fitness stream. But I like talking about it. I like talking about sports. I like talking about exercise, and done a lot of research over the years. Because I used to and I've gone like through different phases. So when I was younger, like a teenager, I could dunk a basketball because I was playing so much basketball. So I was able to dunk a basketball. It was really good. And then I got older. When I got to college, I wasn't playing as regularly. Just was too busy with my studies. So I lost the ability to run and jump as fast as I used to be able to do. So I wanted to regain that ability, like in my mid-20s. So I started really studying how to increase my vertical so I can return to my glory days of dunking a basketball. And really, it's not that complicated. If you want to be able to jump higher, you need to increase your strength and you need to increase your plyometric ability. So you have muscles that are going to propel you to jump higher or to run faster. There's two components for those muscles to operate in the most optimal way. You have to increase their strength so that they're strong enough to propel your body, and they have to be able to contract fast enough in a fast enough way so that you can move in a agile way on the court or on the field. So that's two components. Like there's a muscle component and there's like a nervous system component, like how fast your nerves are firing to contract the muscles, to coordinate that muscle to contract in a very powerful and coordinated way to generate the force needed to propel you to get that like 35, 40-inch vertical, for example. So you have to do two things. You have to do weight training. You have to be able to strengthen those muscles. And then you have to do plyometric training. Plyometric training means like moving your feet in a fast, coordinated way. So like doing really fast jumps, like just standing in place and then jumping, or like doing lunges, like really lunge jumps, for example, or sprinting. Sprinting is a great plyometric exercise to get your muscles trained to just fire faster, 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 faster. Because when you strength train, like when your muscles get stronger, they also become slower, because it's slow twitch muscles that are actually lifting weights. Like when you want to do a squat, for example, because you want to strengthen your quads, you want to strengthen your posterior chain. So maybe you're doing like a low back squat, or you're doing a high back squat for your quads. You're strengthening the muscle, but it's the slow twitch muscles that are really getting developed. The slow twitch muscles are not all that you need for jumping ability. The fast twitch muscles have to also be operating, and those are developed through plyometrics. So both go hand in hand. So I was doing a lot of jump training in my early 20s, or my mid 20s rather. Then I had been married, and then I started having kids, and then forget training, forget having any kind of fitness goals, because you have to deal with a baby. So that's when kind of my training went off the deep end, kept gaining weight over time. And, then recently, or the past 3 or 4 years, I've been trying to, I've lowered my goals substantially. I just want to lose fat, do some weightlifting, cardio. I do a lot of cardio nowadays. People asking reaction for Muhammad Hijab and Destiny debate. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but maybe we'll do that at some point, maybe next week. Mufti Cheesecake making jokes. Is CrossFit coach Rabbi Ferris allowed to criticize the ruler's lifting form? Yeah, no, that's khuruj. Khuruj bil lisan. Is Andrew Tate a plant? I saw a lot of criticism of Andrew Tate, or as I call him, Top Jeet. Top Jeet, because he's now like openly promoting gambling sites. So yeah, he could be a plant. Who knows? Allahu Alam, but he's good friends with Rabbi Ferris, so I wonder if Rabbi Ferris said anything about the gambling promotion. Okay, so we're over 2 hours now, guys. We're gonna have a show tomorrow as well, inshallah. And then I think on Wednesday is gonna be the interview with Dr. Simon Godek. So stay tuned tomorrow. I'll be back, and maybe we can talk more about fitness training. If you have any fitness questions for me, you want Coach Daniel's perspective on your training, let me know. And then we'll see tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about the revelations from the Christian apologists about the fact that like Sam Shamoun admitted to beating his wife. And Apus also had a bunch of revelations about his personal life that were, it's quite shocking actually. So maybe we'll talk about that, the Civil War coverage, Christian apologetics. Maybe that'll be the topic, or we'll see what happens. So stay tuned. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our newsletter, hit the like button. It helps us out a lot. Appreciate everyone who submitted super chats. And we will see you, inshallah, tomorrow. So with that, I will bid you assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.